They went. They're going to blame me for causing this. I didn't cause it. I didn't cause it. I could have done this like a window.
Turn the bed, that's your choice. You don't protect the people. Support them to protect the terrorists. No one mentioned you. I'm going to say al-Qaeda in Syria. Where's the Syria? I would support al-Qaeda. Do you? No, I don't. No justice, no peace. Hands off the Syria! Hands off 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 Syria!
Şimdi herkesi davet ediyorum. Lütfen duyarsız olmayın. Lütfen.
I mean, my view is in 10 minutes this will have disappeared, or this will have dissolved. That's my view, and I just think that's the way to go with it, don't you? I mean, I might be wrong, but I would have thought in 10 or 15 minutes it's going to naturally...
Right. Okay, so this moment in time, you don't want to cooperate.
It's not that I don't want to cooperate, but it's just that I just don't think I'll be particularly helpful.
No, but we need to try and see if that would be helpful. Okay, that may be. We allow 15 minutes. I can't say what the inspector wants to do, who's now in charge of this. But until you come over, someone that people can listen to here, who've identified yourself as a person in charge, we need yourself to represent these people to try and decide.
Well, I'll
figure out how we
represent
can do it.
them.
If you're not
I
willing
don't mind
to
representing
cooperate,
them.
Because I don't think that this government or any government has the right to go into another country and dictate to them how they do things, and they certainly shouldn't do it in a militant way.
So do you have some connection with Syria?
I don't know, I'm just a human being, and I think that human lives should be valued no matter where you come from.
Do you think the government's lying about all the chemical weapons and things?
I don't think there's enough evidence for them to be able to say one way or the other, and just because there are chemical weapons doesn't mean that you go and kill people.
Can you think of a time when Britain was justified to go to war?
No.
So it's a warmongering nation.
It is. I am, my father's from India, and, he's the living experience of what it's like to have England, come and take over your country. I have friends in the Caribbean, I have friends all over the world, and is it the statistic that Britain's it's only 11 or 17 countries in the world that Britain hasn't invaded, which is a stark statistic if it's true.
Do you think the British government's really calling the shots, or do you think there's somebody behind them?
I do begin to think that over the last decade or so, the British government has become a bit of a lapdog to the United States. But if we are supposed to be the power that we've been over centuries in the past, then we really need to stand up as a government and speak for ourselves and not just be a voice box for other nations.
Do you want to give your name? It's your choice.
Yeah, Liz Clark. Thank you.
There's no point now. That's the background. And I'm not trying to interrogate you. I'm just asking you what the situation is. We'll have a little chat. That's it.
Let's get on with our jobs, all right? get a chance to sort this out, and we'll put you out.
So what do you think is going to unfold right now?
I personally believe that the West have backed themselves into a corner. They can't really back down because these men have the most enormous egos. So when they say things like, military action's inevitable, then usually they have to follow through. If they don't,
so what do you think Iran will do?
I don't know. I've heard conflicting reports that Iran will. Some reports say Iran has just condemned it. Other reports say that Iran will actually fight back and will intervene. I think that's what they should do. I think that's what Russia should do. I think Russia should make it clear that any attack on Syria is an attack on Russia. Because
how could Iran retaliate? What could Iran do?
I suppose there's been talk about closing the Straits of Hormuz, which would cause innumerable economic damage, especially with a recession now. If the Hormuz was closed, oil prices would rise. I suppose they could attack US bases in the Gulf, but I don't think they'll do that. Other than that, maybe attack soft Israeli targets around the world.
So if Iran is faced with losing Syria, it would be its conduit to Hezbollah as well. Would Iran suffer that, accept that?
I don't think they would. I think more than the fact that Hezbollah, the conduit and the supply line to Hezbollah will be cut off, I think Hezbollah have developed themselves into a movement which can survive even in the most harsh of circumstances. And even if Syria was to go, they would be able to overthrow, to withstand. That's not the problem. The problem is if Syria goes, in whose hands will it go into? If it goes into Takfiri Wahhabi extremists, they will launch a war in Iraq, as we see more and more attacks by al-Qaeda on the Shias of Iraq. They will probably launch attacks on Iran itself, in Baluchistan and in other areas. So I think it's actually Iran itself which is actually in danger.
So finally, Hezbollah, do you think they will react towards Israel in the event of an attack on Syria?
Well, that would be their only option because the West isn't going to commit ground troops. If the West committed ground troops, Hezbollah would be able to attack them and take them on. The troops are based in Jordan, Turkey and other places, so unless Hezbollah wants to enter those theatres of war, which they don't, that leaves Israel as their only option. Do they want to open up a front against Israel while they've got the extremist Wahhabis on the other front and growing in influence in Tripoli and Lebanon as well? I don't know. So really, it's a really dynamic situation.
Where would the West attack from? If America's going to attack Syria, from where would it do it?
I think I've heard Britain will attack from Cyprus. They've got their base in Cyprus. I'm sure Turkey will probably, well, having said that, Turkey didn't allow them to invade Iraq, so I don't know if Turkey would allow them to attack from their territory, but I don't see why not. They're a NATO partner. Obviously the other Gulf countries, Bahrain, they all have bases there, and Jordan as well, although Jordan has kind of tried to keep its involvement in this war out of the public eye. So there's no shortage of stooges in the region.
The strange thing is the American ships seem quite vulnerable to the anti-ship missiles. It's strange they put them in their proximity.
For all we know, that could be, the Americans have previously put sitting ducks there in order to suck themselves into more wars. For example, Pearl Harbor, they basically made their ships easy to target so that they could be sucked into the war. Is that what they're trying to do here? I don't know. It could be a blunder. The Americans aren't infallible. They could possibly be making a stupid mistake.
Listen, thank you. Do you want to give your name? It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm Isa Ali.
The British ruling class and its imperialist allies are prepared to pay when they support the occupation of Palestine, when they support imperialist intervention